Welcome to the Connection Podcast. I am Lauren Dry, also known as the Connection Catalyst. Connection and this podcast for me is personal. As a driven professional, I found myself an expert in all things work and business, but it was at home that I really needed clarity and ease. After finally finding it one marriage breakdown and one marriage reset later, and finally discovering what really works to have connection in modern relationships, using science, simplicity, and soul, our signature program, Rise into Regulation, was born. That's giving so many others in modern, driven relationships back clarity and ease for good. On the podcast today, we're going to dive deep together on all things relationships, business, identity, and leadership. And clarity and ease is at the heart of it all. And we are so happy to be with you so that you can have what you need in connection, mind, body, and soul too. I don't know about you, but I am lucky enough to have Christmas be an absolute nightmare every year. Whether it's because Morgan and I both have big families and it feels like we're splitting ourselves 20 different ways. What a blessing, hey? What an absolute blessing to feel like we have so many different people that we want to spend our time with. But if you're anything like us, that blessing is also just ever so slightly a nightmare because it's so many other people with important feelings and needs and values that you really want to honor and you want to use as an opportunity to deepen and cherish and value that connection even more. But it's a pressure cooker. And there's a ton of reasons why it's a pressure cooker. And, some of my clients are going through some really tough stuff right now. One, Amy isn't talking to her brother right now and hasn't for a couple of years. But this is the first year that potentially maybe they can be in the same room and hang out with each other's nieces and nephews and hopefully bridge that gap. And there's so much nervousness and fear and resentment. It's a pressure cooker. Another client, James, his dad keeps trying to discipline the kids in a way that is old school. And as much as you want to protect the kids when you're in that situation, there's also the relationship with your parents. And what traditional boundaries setting tells you to do is tell them to listen to what you have to say or cut them off completely. And that's a trauma in and of itself. So how do you make the right decision? Obviously, your kids and their welfare and the way that you raise them and your family values comes first, but that's tricky. And another client, Frances, is just trying to survive the silly season without divorcing her husband every single time they travel to an event. That transition from home to those complex family dynamics is a nightmare. Not to mention navigating grief if someone precious to you is missing this Christmas and trying to juggle appreciation for the people who are still in your life while holding space for those huge emotions and all of that tenderness. Today, we're going to cover the 2 reasons why the silly season can be so hard. We're also going to cover the 3 ways to make a plan for the silly season or any holiday season that, 1, serves you in a way that doesn't mean cutting off your entire family. 2, allows you to enjoy these beautiful milestones and moments in the year. And 3, maybe even creates breadcrumbs or huge moments in time where repair is possible without abandoning yourself or creating a dynamic that may reinforce or recreate unhealthy patterns with family members, with your partner, with anyone. Welcome to the Connection Podcast. Now, there are 2 reasons why this wonderful season can be so hard for so many. And we're going to look at them from a nervous system perspective. The first reason why the silly season can feel so hard and overwhelming is that, 1, if you haven't heard this before, our body and our nervous system doesn't understand and doesn't know the difference between anxiety and excitement. It's why so often if you have a holiday coming up, you feel a huge sense of overwhelm and it can be hard to downregulate and enjoy this beautiful holiday that you've put aside for yourself and for your family. And it's why when it comes up to things like Christmas, the overwhelm of the challenges involved can feel completely insurmountable when it comes to measuring them up against the joy and the anticipation of what is meant to be a beautiful connective season. The butterflies in your tummy, our body doesn't know if that's from excitement or if that's from dread. And so even when logically we know that we have a plan and we've organized things in the best way possible, that tension can really carry over into the day itself and mean that you don't actually get to enjoy it unless it's way down the track and you're looking at the photos and wishing that you'd been more in the moment. So, the two things that you do need in order to appreciate this holiday and enjoy it for what it is, even if there are complicated times within the mix, are one, regulation. Although it's a bit of a pop word at the moment, regulation is going to give you back the ability to have a true assessment around whether the situation you're dealing with, whether it's a complex conversation with your mother in law, a debate with your brother, grief, sadness, worry, anticipation, whether it really is a true nervous system tiger situation that is dangerous and you do need to create firm and immediate boundaries around versus something that's more of a kitten level situation and that perhaps with time and with a bit of support, you can look back on and say, hey, that was a challenge and that was frustrating, but I'm really proud of how I handled myself. And perhaps even made that an opportunity for the other person to step up in a way that was connective and not disruptive or disconnective. And two, what you also need are connected boundaries. Now, this is a signature method inside of Rise, but as much as I can, I try to give it back to you because having connected boundaries is a difference between walls that shut people out and true nourishing values that allow you to have relationships with all sorts of people in a way that's safe and secure and doesn't involve putting your own mental welfare at risk or even that of your kids and your family. Let's start first of all with regulation. Now, you might feel like you've got a handle on this, and regulation is not the biggest issue on your plate right now. But in order to use the connected boundaries, start first of all with this simple, healthy check as to whether you are in your body or whether you're completely dissociated and in performance mode, or if you have a low level fight mode going on behind the scenes, which is keeping you locked up and keeping those resentment levels high, which prevents you from having real clarity about what's happening in the situation around you. Now, if you're not familiar with regulation practices and some simple somatic tools that allow you to come into your body in a fast and effective way, what's going to happen when you hear the word regulation and you're trying to think of really stressful family dynamics is that your body is going to reject even the thought of regulation, because the thought of regulation is threatening to the protective part of yourself that says, I have to protect myself. I have to be on. I have to stay in survival mode, fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, or I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be wounded. I'm going to be vulnerable and something bad is going to happen. So if you are experiencing that when I say the word regulation, I just want to hold your hand with so much love as I say this. It's so normal. And I'm holding that part of you with so much compassion. I want you to start exploring simple somatic practices in a way that speaks to that part of your brain with kindness and tenderness and allows it to experience the word regulation in a bit of a new way. One that says, hey, I'm not asking you just to calm down while the world burns down around you. What I'm asking you to do is come back into safety so that your body feels like a friend again and you don't need to live in dissociation where you really start to feel the physical effects of living at that nervous system state for a really long time. So if you're feeling challenged by the word regulation, start off first of all by touching your chest with your palm or touching your belly or even both while you say the word regulation or let's say support, even if the word regulation feels really hard. And I just want you to touch your body. And if you're finding that really, really hard, just tap your fingertips, your thumb to your finger one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you can't see me on the YouTube video, what I'm doing is I'm just taking my thumb and my first finger and tapping it quite solidly, and then doing that with each finger as I go on the same hand. And what's really, really beautiful as you do this is to say a really supportive phrase. A beautiful one to use is peace is within me with each finger tap. And it's just something really gentle and inviting. We'll call it a bridging exercise that doesn't involve doing breath work or doing really, really deep regulation practices. When your body's on high alert and even feeling those sensations in your fingertips can feel overwhelming. So just use that as a check to see how close you are to your body right now. And if it does feel hard to do, take it as a signal, a loving signal from your body. Don't make any big decisions right now and wait until you do feel safer coming into your body and feeling those sensations before you make decisions about how to manage your time or how to make plans around the silly season. Remember, your nervous system will tell you that the house is on fire anytime you feel stressed. So you have time. You've got a second to do this exercise. You've got 5 minutes to yourself, no matter generally what is happening, whether you are driving in the car, whether you're cooking dinner, whether you are working or running on the treadmill. Allow yourself the opportunity to just see if you can touch your own body and allow your nervous system to feel as though it's safe enough to experience instead of just associate. Inside of Rise, we have a ton of regulation practices and different levels of somatics that allow you to come home into your body in a really effective way on a regular basis, in a way that doesn't feel like self-sabotage. So if you'd like more information on that, I do have a free training in the show notes. So click on that anytime and we'd be more than happy to walk you through a system that actually helps you stay in this beautiful, safe and regulated state on a regular basis. But in the meantime, start with these simple somatic processes. And then what we're going to do is, if you feel like you've come a little bit closer into your body while you are considering what to do around the silly season, and also after you've made those plans and when it's coming up to getting ready to go, when you're in the moment and you're feeling overwhelmed with everything that's happening, hang on to these tools and build that familiarity so that they feel easier to access in the moment. Once you've got a handle on that, give yourself a beautiful, loving reminder around what enmeshment is. When you have a beautiful, loving reminder around what enmeshment is, connected boundaries become a lot easier. Enmeshment is not what we think it is, and I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast already, but it bears repeating. Enmeshment is not, oh, okay, I need to be attached to you 24/7 in order to be happy. Enmeshment is, you must think the same things that I do or feel the same things that I do, especially when I'm distressed, and share my exact same values, or you're not a safe person to be around. And funnily enough, the most threatening clash of values and clash and threat around enmeshment patterns happens between people who have different communication styles. So often one person will say, well, you're too aggressive with your opinions. And the other person will say, well, you don't talk at all and you just shut people out. And so when you're working with the wiring around communication patterns for these people and you're trying to resolve even something as simple as where to have Christmas dinner, then you're already on the back foot. So understand, first of all, that your nervous system is going to seek safety through predictability. So someone who communicates the same way as you do and perhaps understands your perspective is going to feel a lot safer than someone who perhaps has different communication values. So allow yourself the opportunity to sit in that space and say, hey, if someone communicates a little bit differently to me, I'm already walking into a situation where my nervous system is not going to be comfortable. And that is called enmeshment, when I feel threatened by how someone communicates when it's different to me. Now, obviously, there are situations where the way that people communicate, perhaps swearing or, actual expressions of personal attacks, for example, that's not what I'm talking about here. But when we're not regulated and we don't understand enmeshment, our nervous system and our brain will interpret absolutely every miscommunication as something to that level. Cruelty, anger, disgust, when perhaps it may just be a different communication style. So allow yourself the opportunity to dive into what enmeshment is and make sure it's not ruling how you're perceiving another person's reality. This does take time and it does take patience and it does take a lot of work around resetting those hidden patterns that feed into the stories that perhaps have been with you for a lifetime. So give yourself grace as you explore how to untangle enmeshment from your relationships so that you're the master of them, they're not the master of you. After you have gotten familiar with how to regulate and how familiar that is and how comfortable that is for you according to your relationship with regulation and what somatic tools feel really supportive to you depending on what's happening at the time. Once you have understood that enmeshment plays a huge role in all of your interactions, then what you can do is start working with connected boundaries. Now, connected boundaries are the trademarked supportive boundaries method inside of Rise. And I'm so happy that I get to be able to give it to you in the silly season when we need them the most. And they are built on the 3 layers of connection and the 3 doorways to navigate when someone perhaps is not honoring your values at each of the layers of connection. So grab a pen and paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a plan for you around connected boundaries so that coming into some of these challenging conversations, you have a plan. First, what we're going to do is we're going to build a map around what your own language is when it comes to communicating with others, whether it's at a surface level around how you communicate and your words, or whether it's at a core level, who you really are as a person, or what is important to you at a core level so that you can feel really safe in certain relationships and have the ability to be able to discern between which person belongs in which circle. We're going to do that, first of all, by mapping out what your values are at a communication level, a lifestyle level, and a core level. Now, stay with me here because if you have a plan, if you have an agreement with your own self around what you look like when you move in the world, then you're going to be able to clearly and quickly see whether a conversation with someone else is going to go well from the get-go or whether it's something that you need to maybe place some connected boundaries around. Quick, smart, in a way that doesn't create further problems down the track for you. So just to recap, in the Connected Boundaries Bible, you have your 3 layers of connection and your 3 doorways to navigate when perhaps someone is not honoring one of these layers for you. Out of those 3 layers, you have your communications layer, your lifestyle layer, and your core layer. So for your communications layer, what I'd like to identify with you is a couple of things. What is important to you around communication so that you can continue to have the capacity to talk about a lighthearted issue, a heavy issue, whatever the challenge is, in a way that keeps your body regulated and allows you to continue to have curiosity for the other person's perspective and speak really confidently about your own. I'll start with myself. So at level 1 of the Connected Boundaries Bible, on the first layer around communication, the values that are really, really important to me are kindness, curiosity, a low tone, and patience. So if someone's communication style clashes with any of these values, I'm going to struggle. For example, if one of my communication values is kindness, but perhaps I'm having a conversation with someone who's quite sarcastic, maybe enjoys teasing a lot, I love that for you. Good for you. If that's the way that you communicate and you really, really value that style of communication and you have a circle of people around you that also appreciate that, more power to you. But because I know and trust what my communication values are, I'm going to tell you right now, if that is a way that you communicate on a regular basis, you and I are going to struggle. I have a terrible sense of humor when it comes to being teased. It's just not my jam. I don't enjoy it. I love it for you if that's the way that you vibe. But when it comes to me, I like to have conversations where if it does get to a level of teasing past my capacity, I get to bow out or at least have the discernment for my own self to be able to recognize that this person's communication style is just different to my own. Instead of taking it personally right from the start when they communicate in a way that I don't like. So, on the first layer of your Connected Boundaries Bible in communication, I'd like for you to write down what your values are and go really deep. What are your values around tone? What are your values around joking? What are your values around patience? And once you've written those down, I have an important next question for you. Before you go into each of the next layers, what we do is a check. And we've covered a lot of this in the values episode of the Connection podcast. So if you've already checked in with that episode, then you're going to love having a little bit of a reset now. After you've identified and written down what your values are around communication, the next most important step is to do a check. And the check is the question, am I being really honest and aware around my own capacity to meet these values too. Because if I really value kindness and patience and I don't regularly put that out, when it comes to expecting kindness and patience from other people, my capacity is really low because I don't know what it feels like to struggle and wrestle with my own self to make sure that I'm bringing kindness and patience, even when it feels really, really hard. So it's going to feel threatening when someone steps on those values to me instead of recognizing that it's perhaps just a difference of communication and I get to choose how I manage that. So do that healthy check before you move on to the next layer. And we're going to fly through these. The next layer is lifestyle. So if you feel like there are going to be conversations coming up around parenting, for example, what are your values around parenting? Are you a fan of conscious parenting or gentle parenting or authoritative parenting? Do you know that? And if you are aware of that, write that down and make sure that you have clarity when you're coming into conversations around what's going to feel okay to discuss and what's going to feel off limits. The same for social values around lifestyle. When it comes to socializing, are you someone who doesn't drink alcohol? Is that something that you're okay with? Are you someone who has a very busy social life? Are you more of a homebody? Do you know what these values are and can you write them down so that when you're in conversation with someone else and you're recognizing that perhaps they have different values to you, you're not going to take it personally, you're not going to feel judgmental either. It's simply a difference of lifestyle values. And then we're going to be able to give you 3 safety doorways to get out of it if you just don't want to have those conversations because there is a values clash. The third layer of the Connected Boundaries Bible is your core values. Now, these are really important to know and to cherish because if you are feeling like everything is okay for communication and everything, and you share the same lifestyle values, but perhaps something is hitting you in your chest and you're feeling like this conversation has gone south real fast, then it's going to be important that you know what your core values are so you can identify why it feels so uncomfortable. For myself, one of my core values is authenticity. So I can get a little uncomfortable if I'm noticing someone speak into quite a few white lies, for example. Now, is it my place to judge if, for example, I'm maybe not married to this person or I don't have regular enough interactions with this person to really be able to state one way or another whether they should be having a fluid relationship with the truth on a day-to-day basis? Ultimately, it's none of my business most of the time. But I have to be able to notice that if authenticity is a really high value of mine, I'm going to be bothered when someone else doesn't perhaps have that as their highest value. So I need to hold my own self accountable around making sure that I don't expect, because of enmeshment patterns that can happen with all of us, that the other person behaves in the way that I decide is right or wrong. I simply have to accept that some people's core values are different, or maybe they operate in a different rating system to me. So the other person may value authenticity, but perhaps a different value around joy or kindness may be higher than authenticity for them. And that's okay. But I have to take accountability for what is going to be super sensitive for me. Now, how to use these connected boundaries when it comes to complex conversations and situations around Christmas. So let's use a few examples that are going to help you get through the silly season. The first we're going to use is James. So James's dad is an old school guy who was raised to be very, very strict with his kids. But James is in a relationship and has raised his family to use more conscious parenting styles. So he's going into Christmas feeling really, really anxious and worried that there's going to be a miscommunication, a fight, a discussion that's going to get heated when the kids maybe make a mistake or communicate in a way that isn't perfect according to his dad's standards, and there's going to be a clash and there's going to be a fight. What I would say to James, first of all, is make sure you have a lot of clarity on the 3 levels of the Connected Boundaries Bible, because what you're going to do going into this situation is, first of all, have a really good handle on what your values are around communication. And this is much, much more important than level 2 and level 3, and I'll tell you why. Level 1 of the Connected Boundaries Bible is your do not pass go, do not collect $200, your fail-safe gateway in order to allowing people to have deeper conversations about your lifestyle or about your core values. And if someone doesn't honor that first layer of the Connected Boundaries Bible, I'm telling you right now, you have full permission to use one of the 3 doorways to make sure that that conversation doesn't continue in a way that feels unsafe. And we'll go over those doorways in a second. Now, imagine as James is walking through the house, he's noticing that his dad is making some comments about the kids, perhaps under his breath, or perhaps in a sideways, you may feel a passive aggressive way about how the kids are behaving. What you would first identify is that James's dad is breaching the first layer of the Connected Boundaries Bible, the communications layer. If he's not being clear and he's not being kind and he's not being patient, then that's a breach of 3 of the Connected Boundaries Bible values. So if there is a breach at that layer, you don't even have to discuss anything at layer 2. No conversations pass go, no conversations collect $200 if that first layer of the Connected Boundaries Bible is not being honored. Okay? And you navigate that by first identifying what the breach is. And it's not the words that he's saying, it's one of your own personal values. You get to use one of the 3 doorways to be able to navigate when someone breaches one of your values within one of those layers of the Connected Boundaries Bible. I hope you're taking notes, but we'll definitely pop some in the show notes for you. Let's use an example for James, who is walking into a complex Christmas function where he knows that his dad is perhaps going to make comments about the way they parent the kids, because James's dad is old school and James probably practices something like conscious parenting, which is a little bit more new school and a little bit more related to attachment theory. Let's imagine that James has just finished Christmas dinner and he's noticing that his dad is mumbling under his breath about unruly kids. And he doesn't appreciate it. It's a breach of that first layer of the Connected Boundaries Bible, which is communication. The 3 doorways that he can use to manage that breach of the Connected Boundaries Bible at the communication level, number 1, the 3 doorways are educate, redirect, or release. Now, the use of the first doorway, educate, sounds exactly like you think it does. It's having a conversation about communication at level 1 and the values that are being breached. So although the issue looks like a level 2 lifestyle issue around parenting, if his dad is mumbling underneath his breath, or perhaps not talking kindly, or perhaps not being honest, or perhaps being passive aggressive, that's a breach of a communications boundary, not a lifestyle issue. And you don't have to have conversations about your lifestyle values if someone is not honoring level 1. I know I can't. I know someone wants to have a conversation with me about parenting, but they are breaching any of my communication values. I just don't have the capacity, because my curiosity and my compassion and my ability to hold space for that other person is very much reduced if they're not acting in alignment with my communication values. So the 3 doorways that he can use if he's breaching that communications layer is educate, redirect, and release. And educate sounds like educating the other person on the fact that there has been a communication values breach. And without discussing lifestyle at all, educate sounds like, hey, Dad, I'd really like to talk to you about this later. But when it comes to having a conversation properly, I really need to make sure that it's a safe place where we both have the patience to talk about this and I have the capacity to actually listen to you really well. Just after lunch, when the kids are running around and we're all tired, maybe we've had a couple of drinks. So I don't think it's the right time. Is that okay with you? Educate is exactly that. Educating another person on what your communication values are and giving that safety layer an opportunity to breathe, giving the other person enough information to consider that that communication value is really, really important. The second option that he can use is redirect. Never use redirect if resentment is high, because it'll just add and compound onto the issue. But redirect is exactly what you think it is. It's noticing that someone is perhaps operating in a way that's out of alignment to your communication values, but you have enough fuel in the tank, so to speak. You have enough capacity to redirect the conversation away so that you get to choose when and where you raise that conversation and if you really need to. And the last one is release. And again, exactly what you think it is. But traditional release is very much a wall. I won't tolerate you talking to me like that. I won't tolerate you talking about my kids like that. We're leaving. Whereas the Connected Boundaries Bible uses release as an opportunity to understand and connect, but also have firm boundaries that won't be breached. So release in the Connected Boundaries Bible sounds like Hey, Dad, I'm noticing that you feel really frustrated. I can hear the things that you're saying underneath your breath. So, again, you're referencing the communication. You're not referencing level two because you only talk about level two when level one is okay. And if level one is not okay, use educate, redirect, or release. And release sounds like, hey, I notice you're really frustrated. And I'm also noticing that perhaps it's not the best time to have these conversations just after we've had Christmas dinner, when we've had a few drinks. Maybe next week we can talk about this, but let's not have these conversations around the kids right now. I will sort them out and I'll make sure that they are being respectful in this environment, but let's not talk about this right now. Now, release is exactly what it sounds like. I'm releasing the other person. So James is releasing his dad from the weight and the responsibility of having to have these conversations right now, but you're also releasing yourself from the overwhelm of, I don't want to navigate this on Christmas Day. The difference between a release using the Connected Boundaries Bible and normal release phrases that can feel like a wall, like I'm going, I don't have to tolerate this, is with the Connected Boundaries Bible, you also can place a bridge. So a bridge sounds like we are not going to be having this conversation right now, or we do have to go. We've got another family event that we need to get to. Whatever that release sounds like, it's ending the conversation and exiting until you have the capacity to have a deeper conversation. But you're also placing that bridge. So when you use release, always be the one to place a bridge in place. If you're the one hanging up the phone, if you are the one walking away, if you are the one ending the conversation, honor your own connected boundaries at the communication level by being the one to put a bridge in place. And that sounds like, I'll catch up for coffee with you tomorrow. That sounds like, let's go for a walk next week. That sounds like, I will call you tomorrow. Be the one to create the bridge and the one to cross it, because that creates self-trust. Okay? It's not about who's winning and who's losing and who says who has the last word. It's about being the one who's the master of the conversation, the master of regulation. Be that person. And you'll create a huge level of self-trust, which feeds into regulation whenever there are complex dynamics. Now, there are 100 different scenarios that you could apply this to, but I want you to remember the rules that allow you to navigate and move in really complex family dynamics, especially around Christmas. One, understand that your body does not know the difference between anxiety and excitement. So, of course, seasons like Christmas are going to feel overwhelming. Two, remember that enmeshment tells you sweet little lies. And if the other person doesn't think the exact same thing that I do, then they are bad, I am good, or vice versa, which creates a shame spiral. And three, remember that you have the ability to use connected boundaries. You don't have to choose between a wall that shuts people out in order to feel safe or abandon yourself completely to please others. And at the 3 levels of the Connected Boundaries Bible, you can create agreements either with your partner or implicitly with your family or explicitly with extended family members, for example, that allow you to have safety around times of year like this. It allows you to have safety around things like intimacy. It allows you to have safety and connection around things like how work is navigated in the home. So if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper, please go to the show notes, watch my free training guide about how we can support you to go deeper around any of that. But take your notes from this episode and just play around with them. Make sure that you can build out some scenarios that allow you to feel safe moving into complex conversations and complex relationships. And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, I am here. I've tried to pack as much as I can into one episode around supporting you to have a plan, but there's always so much more that you can do to support yourself so that your hidden patterns are not running your relationships. You are the master of your connection. I'm so happy you've been with me today, and I look forward to chatting with you more, and I hope this has been a beautiful resource. Please like, save, subscribe, and pop some comments in the show notes here because we'd love to hear from you, and it really helps us reach as many people as possible to support them in complex relationships, in complex marriages, and in the busy modern lives that we all live in order to maintain connection without losing ourselves at any point in time. And I'm wishing you such a wonderful and blessed silly season. And I'm here to chat anytime you need. Come hang out with me on Instagram at Lauren_dry. Thanks for being here. Big love.